大家好，我是 Peter，欢迎来到我的频道。今天 FT 了没？跟着 Peter 一起赚。我们带大家看看今天市场上最火爆的消息啊！现在刚才应该是2个小时之前传出 FPF 被抓了，那在被巴马的这个警察逮捕起来了。就是在12月12号，你看这是一个 official letter，巴哈马的警察把 SBF 给逮捕了，那就是之前那是 former CEO of FTX。那这个文章一出来之后，我觉得哇，受到大家的关注啊。我们带大家看看到底发生什么事啊。Coindex 这边讲到 FTX founder SBF arrested，那巴哈马 says，那巴哈马警察这边把他抓起来啊。那抓起来主要就是因为有机会再过2天在美国，他们有一个听证会啊，看会不会把他引渡回美国。那我觉得这个有可能是主要的一个原因呢。那美国政府在这个地方请巴哈马这个把他逮捕起来之后呢，看有没有办法在听证会之前把他引渡回美国。巴哈马跟美国应该有一些引渡条款吧？那特别是在这整个事件发生这么久了，到现在终于被逮捕起来了。那我觉得这个至少给大家一个大快人心啊！之前在不管他在什么样不同的地方参加 space 啊，甚至回答人家专业的人士的问题，那给所有的这些在询问问题，他顺便还是一边回答问题，又一边在玩游戏，这个也是让大家就是瞠目结舌，很傻眼。那另外来看一下，这边有一个 account 讲Tree of Alpha 讲 FTX 的 CEO， 现在的 CEO John Ray III prepare statement for tomorrow's hearing。明天其实有个听证会啊，那听证会内容是什么？第一个 ，customers' asset from FTX was commingled with the asset from Alameda trading platform。还是问几个问题啊？第一个 ，FTX 的这个本身跟 Alameda Research 中间资产这样子跑来跑去，到底是一个什么状况？那 Alameda Research use client fund to engage in margin trading with exposed customers fund to massive loss。Alameda Research 拿了客户的钱，那去做一些交易要亏钱的。那第三个讲说 FTX Group 目前为止，他花了非常非常多钱啊，在2021年到2022年，全部大概是50亿美金啊。这些东西花在买不一样的东西，跟投资不一样的公司啊。据我们所知，他们应该投了超过400家的 startup 或者是一些不同的公司。那这些钱呢，真实投出的价值，可能都只不过是那个钱的一部分而已。另外 ，loan and other payment as made up insider exceed 1 billion。他贷款给一些内部人士啊，或者这些裙带关系的人士，超过10亿美金啊。啊，甚至 FTX 这边一个 private key 跟 crypto asset， 这 private key 跟 crypto asset 他们存放的地方，那其实真正控制的也都是由 FTX 他们自己内部人的控制啊，以及他讲说 FTX use computer infrastructure that gives senior management access the system to store customer assets。整个后面的资产，我们把币放在里面，那结果搞半天是他们里面的这个高阶主管有办法去拿到我们的币。那这有一个 statement 啊，这有一个 statement， 就这个地方讲出来。那另外这个账号也是就讲到明天最主要他们的一些hearing 的，那讲说现在目前为止 FTX US 跟 FTX 就是在破产保护法里面，问题是什么？破产保护里面到底能保护多少？那是不是 FTX US 是整个美国有办法 cover， 甚至 FTX International 是不是也算在里面呢？当然这样其实会有蛮多的这个讨论呢。那另外我们这边可以看到 FTX 这边可能会有一些控诉吧。第一个就是 Wire Fraud， 那 Wire Fraud Conspiracy Security Fraud， 那 Security Fraud Conspiracy， 那 Money Laundering。那这边其实都是主要美国的经济或者是财务相关的罪行啊，那可能就是洗钱啊，那还有这个是说骗局啊，那是骗局，可能骗局，那是 security 就是证券骗局啊，那汇款骗局啊，那这边应该会很多好戏可以看吧。那另外大家会讲说，那 STF 如果去听证会的话，他会回答怎么样的问题呢？我们来稍微看看 我们来看看，有可能他会回答什么问题。这之前的 video 有人问他，看他类似的问题，他会讲什么
Is borrowing the money that belongs to FTX depositors. That's a bright red line, isn't it?
There are a lot of cases where that's actually explicitly part of the programs and that are
But
happening.
not here. Here it says that the digital assets may not be loaned to FTX trading. They can't be loaned out.
Question for Jake.
对，刚才其实主持人问他说，那 FTX 这个资金能这样子借出来吗？之前他们的内部是讲说条款是不能借出来的哦，那为什么现在是借出来呢？他其实打不出来啊。那这边还另外一部分就讲另外一个 interview 问他，也是整个混合资金内部的状况，我们带大家来看一下。
20 times. Jay Clayton, what do you think he's going to say?
If someone says, did you knowingly commingle customer funds with Alameda? What did he say to you when you asked him that? He's like, it was like nebulous.
Yeah. FTX trading does not represent or treat digital assets and users' accounts as belonging to FTX trading. So how is it possible that Alameda had this loan of such a large size?
So there's that piece from the terms of service, but there were a number of other parts of the terms of service and a number of other parts of the platform on top of that. There is the borrow lending facility.
But just make this very straight. Was there commingling of funds? That's what it appears like. It appears like there's a genuine commingling of the funds that are of FTX customers that were not supposed to be commingled with your separate firm.
I ain't knowingly commingle funds.
If someone says, did you knowingly commingle customer funds with Alameda? What did he say to you when you asked him that? He's like, it was like nebulous the way doesn't he have to give a more?
He didn't give if we didn't get to a yes or no.
That's what I mean. So does he do it? I don't recall now. What does he do? I know people do. I don't recall again and again and again.
I think one of the reasons this is going to be so interesting and why we're talking about today is we will see. We'll see how he handles those questions under that kind of pressure. One of the things that makes you a good witness in front of Congress is whether you're coming off as authentic or not. And that is actually a very important part of preparing for these types of hearings.
这个垮了之后呢，那对他的整个管理啊，甚至是里面的风险管理，那 FTX 也是回答一些没办法接受的，让大家听听吧。
SBF's been trying to paint this narrative that he was just so dumb and ignorant and had no malicious intent. You remember this?
That you said one of your great talents in a podcast was managing risk.
That's right. And
it's obviously wrong.
Well, I think that there is something maybe even deeper wrong there, which was I wasn't even trying. Like I wasn't spending any time or effort trying to manage risk on FTX, and that obviously
that's a stunning admission.
What?
That's a pretty stunning admission.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, what happened. Honestly, if I look back on myself, I think I got a little cocky. Maybe more than a little bit. And I think part of me, felt like we'd made it.
Can you talk about the distinction between civil negligence and criminality in the context of what we think has happened here?
Well, look, the interesting part about the law is it's very complicated around someone's mental state. Is your mental state just, lack of paying attention? That's I would say the vernacular way to say negligence. Is it, you had an obligation to pay attention? There were all sorts of signs that you should be paying attention and you ignored them, recklessness? Or do you have some kind of intent? You were like, for example, I need that money. It's not my money, but I'm going to consciously transfer it to my account. Those levels go to level of culpability, different responsibilities at law. I mean, we actually have an amazingly flexible and nuanced legal system around situations like this.
From what you've seen thus far, maybe unfair to prejudge given that we don't have all the facts. What do you think?
Look, I think there was obviously a great deal of bad behavior here that we would think was bad behavior from our perspective as to how you run a financial institution in the United States, but also from a general perspective in how you handle any business.
But what about the idea that some of these laws that we have here around securities and all sorts of other things that might otherwise things that maybe happened would have constituted fraud or worse here, wouldn't there?
Well, let me say this. We have an incredibly well-developed and rigorous legal system around securities markets, securities issuance, securities trading, all of those things. But its basis is in the common law. And outside the United States, there is still a fair amount of common law built around fraud and the like. What does our securities law system do? It creates processes, requirements, transparency, inspection that makes it much easier to detect fraud and prevent fraud. So, I'm not saying that around the world, fraudulent activity isn't policed. We just have what I would say is an incredibly rigorous system for deterring it, detecting it, and when it exists, punishing it.
刚刚这边跟大家分享啦，请大家订阅我们的频道啊。OK，拜拜。